Keir Starmer and Chancellor Rachel Reeves are facing a massive backlash as Labour's potential plan to raise national insurance contributions for employers sparks outrage across the business sector. The proposal, likely to be part of Labour's autumn budget, has been slammed as a tax on jobs and seen by critics as a betrayal of Labour's election promises. Business leaders and political opponents warn that such a tax hike could cripple job creation and drive investment away from Britain, just as the economy struggles to recover. The controversy began when Jonathan Reynolds, Labour's business secretary, hinted during a Sky News interview that a rise in employer NICs could be on the table. Labour had promised during the election campaign not to raise national insurance, VAT, or income taxes on working people. However, Reynolds' comments suggested that while employees would be spared, employers might not be. This apparent loophole has enraged business leaders, many of whom feel Labour is backtracking on its pledges and putting the UK economy at risk. Andrew Griffith, Labour's shadow science secretary, was quick to express his frustration at the government's potential U-turn. Speaking on GB News, Griffith accused Labour of betraying businesses and breaking promises made during the election. "This is another body blow to businesses," Griffith said. "They promised not to raise taxes on work, yet here we are, hearing about a tax on jobs. Labour simply doesn't understand business." Griffith's words have struck a nerve with many in the business world. Concerns are growing over how a rise in NECs would affect job creation and growth. Business leaders argue that such a tax increase would make it more expensive to hire workers, discouraging companies from expanding. In an economic environment already struggling due to the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and global supply chain disruptions, any additional tax burden could have disastrous consequences. Kate Nicholls, chief executive of UK Hospitality, warned that raising NICs on employers could result in job losses, particularly in industries like hospitality that are still recovering from lockdowns and staff shortages. "This is a direct hit on businesses, especially in sectors like hospitality, where profit margins are already razor-thin," Nicholls said. "Any increase in national insurance contributions makes it harder for businesses to hire staff or expand. Ultimately, it's the workers and consumers who will pay the price as businesses are forced to cut jobs or raise prices." Charlie Nunn, the CEO of Lloyds Bank, echoed these concerns, arguing that increasing employer NICs would act as a handbrake on growth and discourage investment. "We need policies that encourage businesses to invest, grow and hire," Nunn said. "Raising employer NICs is a tax on jobs, and it sends the wrong message to businesses at a time when we need them to be investing in the future. It's a dangerous move that could backfire." The potential NICs hike isn't the only issue causing concern. Business leaders are also alarmed by the rumours that Labour is considering raising capital gains tax, CGT, as part of its efforts to generate more revenue for the autumn budget. Capital gains tax, levied on profits from the sale of assets, such as shares and property, is particularly concerning for entrepreneurs and investors. Over 500 entrepreneurs have signed an open letter to Chancellor Rachel Reeves, warning that increasing CGT would hurt the UK's startup ecosystem and weaken incentives to invest in innovation. The letter, organised by the Entrepreneurs Network, highlights the risks associated with a CGT hike. "Raising capital gains tax would be a disaster for startups and innovation," the letter states. "It would weaken the incentives for individuals to invest in new businesses and make it harder for entrepreneurs to raise the capital they need to grow. At a time when the UK needs more innovation, this would be a step in the wrong direction." Robert Jenrick, Conservative leadership hopeful and a fierce critic of Labour's economic policies, has capitalised on the controversy, accusing Labour of betraying the businesses they pledged to support. During an interview with GB News, Jenrick warned that Labour's plan to raise NICs would have catastrophic consequences for the economy. "Keir Starmer promised not to raise taxes on work, but his government is now considering doing just that," Jenrick said. "Raising national insurance on employers is nothing more than a tax on jobs. It's a betrayal of businesses and a betrayal of the working people who will ultimately suffer when companies can't afford to hire new workers. This government is completely out of touch with the needs of businesses." Jenrick's attack has resonated with many business leaders, who argue that Labour's policies show a fundamental misunderstanding of how businesses operate. They worry that the government is prioritising short-term revenue generation over long-term economic growth and job creation. By raising taxes on employers, Labour risks making the UK a less attractive destination for both domestic and international investment. Charlie Mullins, the founder of Pimlico Plumbers, was particularly scathing in his criticism of Labour's potential tax hikes. "This government doesn't have a clue about business," Mullins said. "Raising national insurance on employers is a kick in the teeth for businesses that are still recovering from the pandemic. If you want to create jobs, you don't do it by making it more expensive for businesses to hire people. It's madness." Labour's relationship with the business community has been further strained by Transport Secretary Louise Hay's recent comments about P&O ferries, which sparked a diplomatic row. Hay branded the company a rogue operator and called for a boycott after it fired 800 workers in 2022. Her remarks led to concerns that DP World, the parent company of P&O, might reconsider a $1 billion investment in the UK. Although Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds later clarified that the investment would go ahead, the incident has added to the perception that Labour is failing to strike a balance between worker protections and creating a pro-business environment. Reynolds has defended Labour's economic policies, insisting that the autumn budget will focus on growth and investment while ensuring fairness in the tax system. Speaking on GB News, Reynolds acknowledged that businesses are concerned about potential tax hikes, but argued that Labour's broader policies would benefit both businesses and workers in the long term. "We're working hard to create an economy that works for everyone," Reynolds said. "We're looking at all options for the budget, and our goal is to deliver sustainable growth that benefits businesses, workers, and the wider economy." However, critics argue that Labour's focus on raising taxes and expanding worker protections could alienate the international investment community. Andrew Griffith warned that foreign investors might think twice about putting money into the UK if they see the government raising taxes on businesses. "Investors are looking for stability and certainty," Griffith said. "If they see the government raising taxes on businesses, they'll take their money elsewhere. The UK needs to be a place that welcomes investment, not one that drives it away." As the autumn budget approaches, Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are under increasing pressure to clarify their position on national insurance and capital gains tax. Business leaders, entrepreneurs, and opposition politicians are demanding answers, warning that any move to raise taxes on employers or investors could have serious consequences for the UK's fragile economic recovery. Robert Jenrick summed up the business community's concerns, saying, "If Labour goes ahead with this tax on jobs, they'll be sending a clear message to businesses that they're not welcome here. We need policies that encourage growth, investment, and job creation, not policies that punish businesses for trying to expand and hire." Labour promised not to raise taxes on work, and now they're breaking that promise. As the political fallout from Labour's potential tax hikes continues to grow, Keir Starmer's government faces a critical test. Will they stick to their election promises and support business growth, or will they risk alienating the business community and derailing the UK's recovery? With the autumn budget looming, the stakes couldn't be higher for Starmer's leadership. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. We are trying to provide you the newest political scandals.